Yo, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Gameday Show. I'm Ethan Bass, your host, and this is your source of college football entertainment. Before we start on today's episode, we have a couple news for you today. First of all, today's episode, we're going to be talking about upset games in the SEC championship. How is that going to play out? Fake crowd noise and what the crowd will possibly look like in this college football season. And also LSU, we're going to go deep dive into LSU this season. This episode of the Gameday Show is brought to you by North Broward Prep. Go Eagles! All right, so let's first off with some news. We have our first college football game this Saturday, actually, Austin Peay at Central Arkansas. This is an FCS game at the FES, ACC, Big 12, and the SEC, and also the other conferences don't start for a couple weeks now. And so this will be a good test to see what college football could look like in the future in a couple weeks from now when the SEC starts in 2 weeks. Another news that team practices are now going to full pads. That's big news because teams are starting to get together and stuff and playing scrimmages and practices in full pads. Let's get right into it. All right, let's first get to it with our SEC upset games. Now, this is huge, so let's get right to it. All right, our first SEC upset game, my prediction, will probably be Georgia at Tennessee, and here's why. Now, Georgia is coming off, and it's pretty early in the season, but Georgia is going to play Auburn the week before, and, that could be a different matchup. And Auburn's a really tough team. I believe they're a top 10 team in the AP poll around that spectacle. But they're a really tough team, and that'll be a real big test for Georgia, since that'll be like their first big test, because they lost Jake Fromm. They're bringing Jamie Newman, JT Daniels, and there's going to be a big quarterback battle. They also have a new offensive coordinator, and they lost a lot of their offensive line. So it'll be a really big test for Georgia, but also be a really big test for Tennessee as well, because Tennessee's all getting the hype this season. They're bringing back their quarterback and Jake Giarratano, and they're also bringing back their O-line, a lot of their O-line with Trey Smith leading that way. So this could be a big upset, as you see Georgia on the screen right there. But, it's going to be a big test, as I just said, it should be a pretty good upset. If Tennessee can pull it off. Now, it is early in the season, so anything can happen in college football. Both teams could be very sloppy here, and that's something just to think about. Now, moving on to our next upset game in the SEC. It's not really an upset game, but it's Texas A&M at Auburn. Now, this is the last game of the season for both teams, but normally Auburn does play Alabama the last game of the season, but it's a little bit different this year, so Auburn will already have to go through Alabama, and it's going to be a big test for both teams. It's the end of the season. Both teams are probably going to try to get into a New Year's Six game based off what we're looking at these preseason rankings, because they're both top 15 right now in the AP poll. But, this is a big test. Kellen Mond is come back for A&M. We can see what he does. And, he was struggling last year with Jimbo Fisher last year in that crowd noise. But they had a really tough schedule last year in A&M, so that could be with it. But we'll see how Kellen Mond progressed, and did he decrease from last year. We'll see about that. And then Bo Nix, coming off a very strong freshman year, beat Alabama. I mean, that was a huge game right there. Beat Alabama, and we'll see how he also progresses. So this could be a battle of the quarterbacks here, see where the teams are at the time period, and we'll see. We're going to make those predictions later on, obviously, when we have when the schedules and all teams go through the schedules. But if you're looking at Auburn, like the week before, they do play Alabama, and you're seeing that game right now on the screen. But they do play Alabama, and it could be an emotional game. It probably will be the week before Alabama. If they lose the game, they're going to be very heartfelt to want to come back and beat this very good Texas A&M team coming out, obviously, if they live up to their hype. But it's going to be a very emotional game for both teams. We'll see about that, this A&M and Auburn game. And the last SEC upset game I want to talk about is Ole Miss LSU. Now, this is the end game. This is the end game of the season. As both teams end first game end game. So we'll see about that. We are going to be talking about LSU later on the show, but this is a really impactful game for Ole Miss, because they have a chance to upset the national championship from last year, and this could be a big game. It could be a landslide with LSU. We'll see about that, but we'll talk about LSU a little later. But I feel like that could be a big upset game because Ole Miss, and they have a lot of firecracker with Lane Kiffin. We'll see how their offense progresses since he's a big offensive guy, but we'll see. So the next topic I want to talk about is the championship. Like, like the college football playoff just announced the dates for it. I'll tell you them right now. So Monday, January 11th will be the national championship game. That's pushed back, obviously, since the season's pushed back. Friday, January 1st will be the Rose and All-State semifinal games. Those are pretty important as well to get in the CFP. Basically, all the other like New Year's Six games are around the same date, just a little pushback later. But I put out a poll on our Instagram story, Bass Productions, Ethan.Bass15, and Alligator Nation on Instagram, and a bunch of our fans asked us our questions, and we'll go through those questions in a couple podcasts from now. But and one big question I got was, will there be an asterisk in college football this season? And personally, I don't think so. If you look at college football right now, the only other team outside of the SEC, Big 12, and ACC that can win is Ohio State. But like, I didn't see Ohio State winning either this year. That's just the opinion of mine. That's not obviously facts. But like college football, they call them the world champion. There's obviously still going to be a champion, and it's a college football season. And it's huge. So what I think will happen is that so the conference championship, so the SEC championship winner, the ACC championship winner, and the Big 12 championship winner will all be like locked into the playoff, in my opinion. But then you obviously still have that 4 spot, right? So that 4 spot, I'm thinking that it could be an at-large team. So the loser of one of those championship games, probably the SEC, since they have the most firecracker right now. But so an at-large team could make it into the playoff, but normally it's the 4 conference championship games. But since we only have a Power 5 team, Power 3, sorry, this season, since the Big 10 and the Pac-12 are not playing, then we can maybe have an at-large team. But another team to think about is those Power 3 conferences like the AAC or those conferences. Like, they can have a conference championship and maybe they get their first shot in the college football playoff. But we'll see about that. We'll see how the season rolls out, and we'll make our predictions later. So a big thing that has come out recently is the fake crowd noise. And now college football is probably there in some stadiums. It's going to depend on the state government and that, but they may allow fans inside the stadium, mask required, social distancing, obviously. But with all that in place, then we're in a 90,000 seat stadium. We're running about 15 to 20,000 people, which is still a lot of people, obviously, but it's not the full, max capacity. My opinion on the crowd noise, that even though that college football games were in the crowd, on the defense are all screaming, and I don't think it's legal to do that. I think I read a recent report saying it wasn't legal. But I don't think it's legal to pump fake crowd noise. Maybe the NCAA will legalize that rule. But I think it'll sound pretty cheesy, and it'll obviously feel like a college football game. But then, like, once the camera tilts up, like when you throw a pass, like you don't see anyone, so it could be kind of cheesy. Something I am down for is when they score a touchdown, they do pump crowd noise, but the defensive one, it might seem a little weird. Plus the regulations, maybe a lot of times the stadium's not full enough to put in the speakers. It might be distraction, but like that's the whole point. So we're really not sure. I think the NCAA is gonna see that, but they don't really have any power. It's really the state governments now and the Power 3 conferences right now, since the other 2 are not playing. All right, the Game Day Show team of the week, or like the team focus of the week. We're going with LSU this week. Now, their team that's very interesting said they basically lost their whole offense. They lost Joe Burrow. I believe they had the most picks in the draft with 14, but they lost Joe Burrow, the Delpa dude on defense. They lost Jefferson. Jamar Chase has come back though, and that's huge because he was one of the best wide receivers in the whole college football last year. But Damian Lewis is gone. Burrow, Clareton, is gone. Jefferson, like I said, Patrick Queen, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So these are lots of players. And plus, they did lose their passing coordinator, Joe Brady, to the NFL. So they're losing that too. So they have to find another passing coordinator. But to be honest, I just don't see LSU being as good as they were last year. And we're gonna really see how Ed Orgeron coaches, because it was the year of Joe Burrow. They were fantastic, but people are saying, is Joe Burrow not Ed Orgeron? Ed Orgeron's still a very good coach, but we'll see what he really has, this season. Their new quarterback name is Miles Brennan. Remember that name. He's going to be coached at Orgeron. They're also bringing back Derek Stingley, which is massive, and Jamar Chase. Those are the two really superstars that I can see be playing well. We'll see how Miles Brennan looks in practice. I've been watching some tape, and so far he looks pretty good. But we'll see what he looks in tape. But I just don't see them doing it that well. I see them maybe getting to 8-7 wins, losing to Alabama for sure, probably, because they don't have the star factor powered offense, one of the best offenses ever in college football. So I just don't see them being as good. All right, now moving on to our game predictions. This is the first one of the college football season. Hopefully a lot more Austin Peay and Central Arkansas. I got Austin Peay in this one, and here's why. And, they're coming off a very good season. I believe 11 wins last year in the FCS. Same as Central Arkansas, but I see this one. They're going away. It's 9 p.m. I believe on ESPN this Saturday, so don't forget. All right, thank you guys for joining us on this episode of the podcast. Cool using the new format today. We'll see you all next time.